You're in tune to the Paperflip Real Estate Podcast.
Homebuyers, sellers, renters, realtors, and investors. I'm Lloyd for Real Estate. This is the Paperflip Podcast. Let's get started with today's briefing. So, the news, you see, keep talking about this cooling market, but maybe you out there have another offer rejected and wondering if this cooling is just some kind of a joke. You see the headlines, price growth is slowing, maybe even some small dips here and there, but homes that you actually want, well, they still feel like miles out of reach. What in the world is happening? Is it a buyer's market or a seller's market or something else? Honestly, it's a bit of a mix. But here's the bigger picture. You can still buy a home even right now. And yes, even with inventory staying stubbornly low in so many areas despite those cooling headlines. Let's forget the clickbait for a second and talk about what's really going on here. By April 2025, national year-over-year home price growth has slowed to about 2%. And that's the slowest we've seen for that time of year in over a decade. Some areas are even seeing prices dip a little. Sounds like a buyer's dream, doesn't it? Well, not so fast. While inventory is up a bit from last year, which is good, is still trailing below pre-pandemic levels in a lot of places. And mortgage rates, well, they're predicted to ease up just a tiny bit, but they're still hanging out in a range that makes affordability a huge hurdle for so many people. This isn't the buyer's free-for-all some were really hoping for. It's a tricky, nuanced market, and it calls for a whole new game plan. Now, if you're tired of the confusion, tired of missing out, and you're ready to understand what's actually happening and how to navigate these unique times to finally get those keys to that home, then you're in the right place. I'm Lloyd for Real Estate. I'm here to help show you how to make a winning move in today's perplexing market. All right, so let's break down this cooling market talk. What does it actually mean for you, the person trying to buy a home? Headlines are totally off base. Homes are taking longer to sell compared to the whirlwind of the last few years. And yes, price growth on a national level has definitely slowed down in some specific spots, especially those that saw crazy price jumps during the pandemic. Prices may even be nudging down a bit. And sellers, generally, they're a little more open to talking and negotiating than they were a year or two back. Now, some analysts show nearly half are offering things like rate buy downs, money for repairs. All this does point to a market that's not quite as red hot as it was. But here's the catch. Inventory is still low. Even though we're seeing more listings pop up year over year, which is a good sign, the overall supply of homes in many popular areas are still tight, way below what we called normal before 2020. So what does this actually mean? Well, it means that while the overall market is cooling, the best homes, which are the ones that are in great spots, in good shape, and are priced right, are still getting plenty of attention. And you guessed it, sometimes even multiple offers. Cooling doesn't mean competition has evaporated, especially for those prime properties. Think of it less like a raging inferno and more like very, very hot summer. This gap between the cooling headlines and the reality of still low inventory is exactly where all the buyer frustration is coming from. You hear cooling and you expect big discounts and sellers eager to make a deal, but instead you find you still need to be strategic, quick, and smart. It leads to all those questions. Should I wait for prices to drop more? Am I going to overpay if it's supposed to be a cooling market? Why is it still so darn hard to find a good place? This kind of uncertainty can make you freeze up, miss out on good opportunities, or worse, rushing to a decision because you're not quite getting the full picture. We're in a market where things are different from place to place. Some areas might see prices adjust down, while others, where there just aren't enough homes, might see prices hold steady, or even actually creep up. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all situation. So with all this going on, let's get real about what you should expect as you look for a home in the mid to late 2025. First off, expect fewer crazy bidding wars, but I don't think there'll be a no competition, especially for houses that everyone wants. Those days of 20 offers, all wavering, every possible protection, yeah, those are mostly gone in most places. But a fairly priced home in a great neighborhood will still likely draw in other serious buyers. You might not be fighting off a dozen other offers, but you could easily be up against one or two. So while things have calmed down a bit, making a smart offer is still super important. Now, second, sellers are more willing to negotiate, but they aren't desperate, especially if their home is in good shape and in a desirable area. Remember that low inventory still gives sellers some power. They might be more open to talking about repairs, helping with closing costs, or nudging the price a bit. That's a change from the peak seller's market, but don't expect them to just give the house away if it's in a good one. The power is shifting toward a bit more of a balance, but it hasn't totally flipped everywhere. Now, some reports are even saying that over half of sales are happening below the list price, which is a pretty big shift. And the third, knowing the local market is more crucial than ever. Now, national headlines give you a general idea, but real estate is all about what's happening right now on the ground. Conditions can be wildly different from one town to the next, or even one neighborhood to another. What's happening in a Sunbelt city that's cool and fast might be totally different from a suburb in the Northeast where there's hardly anything for sale. Agent who really gets the tiny trends in a specific target areas, how long homes are taking to sell, what they're selling for compared to the asking price, inventory levels, street by street. That kind of insight, well, it's priceless. Fourth, patience is going to be your best friend. With inventory still fairly tight, finding the right home, not just any home, might take longer than you would like. Try not to get bummed down out in your search stretches for a few months. Just try to hang in there. It may take a while, but the perfect house might not show up in the first couple of weeks. Being patient means you can wait for a place that really fits your needs and your budget instead of settling just because you're tired of looking. And that can happen. So fifth, expect to look harder at a home's condition. When the market was nuts, buyers often had to overlook flaws just to get a house. Now, with a little more breathing room and a few more choices, buyers, that includes you, can and should be picky about a home's condition. This means sellers might need to be ready to fix things that come up in an inspection or price their homes accordingly if there's been some deferred maintenance. You got more power now to ask for repairs and credits. And finally, let's talk about mortgage rates. That's a big concern for a lot of people. There's a huge piece of the puzzle, and while forecasts hint they might ease a little through 2025, they probably aren't going back to those super low numbers we saw in 2020 and 2021. Now, most experts think rates will likely stay above 6% for a good chunk of the year. So budgeting for the current rate situation is absolutely key. Don't base what you can afford on wishful thinking about much lower rates down the road, because it may not happen. Okay, so we picked apart the market. Now let's talk about how you can actually win, how you handle these conditions and finally get those keys to your new home. So here's the first strategy. Become a power buyer. Become a power buyer. So you say, Lloyd, what does it actually mean? Well, it means getting a super solid, fully underwritten mortgage pre-approval before you even seriously start scrolling through the listings. Now, in the market where good homes still are getting snapped up, sellers and their agents are going to pay more attention to offers from buyers who are clearly ready and able to close. Simple pre-qualification letter often isn't enough anymore. And if you can, go through the full underwriting process. Shows that you are serious, you are a low-risk buyer, and that this can really give you a leg up, especially if you end up competing with other offers. And plus, knowing your budget inside out means you won't stretch yourself too thin. Now, here's a second strategy. Widen your search a bit without giving up on what's truly important. So when there aren't a ton of homes for sale, being flexible is huge. It doesn't mean you have to settle for a house you don't even like. It just means being open-minded. Could you look at a neighborhood that's slightly different but offers better value? Are you willing to consider homes that needs just a little bit of cosmetic TLC? Those houses often have less competition on them. Maybe a different style of home or a property that's been sitting on the market a bit longer, where the seller might be more eager to make a deal. The more flexible you are on the nice two halves, the more doors will open. And don't forget to check out new construction if you can find it, especially here in Illinois. Sometimes builders offer perks like rate buy-downs that you won't find on resale homes. So here's the third strategy. Make an offer that stands out, and not just because of the price. Yes, price is very important, but in a market that's cooling yet still competitive for the best homes, other parts of your offer can really make it shine. Can you offer a closing date that works well for the seller? You kept your contingencies, those if-then clauses that we like to slip in there. Have you kept them down to a minimum? Are you willing to do a pre-inspection just for your own info before you make an offer? Sometimes even a personal letter to the seller explaining why you love their home can make a difference by putting a human touch on your offer. Definitely talk to your agent about what terms are most likely to impress your sellers in a specific local market. And here's the fourth strategy. Tap into the hidden market. Now, not every home for sale is splashed all over the big public websites. So ask your agent about off-market properties, or what they call pocket listings. These could be homes being sold directly by the owner, like a for sale by owner. Listings that have expired but might be about to come back onto the market, or properties agent knows that are coming back but haven't hit the multiple listing service yet. Good old-fashioned networking and a well-connected agent can sometimes uncover these gems before everyone else sees them. So having a good agent, well, as you know, is key. And here's a fifth strategy for you. Move with a purpose. Be quick but not careless. Even in a cooling market, the best price, most attractive homes can still go fast. So when you find a place that checks your main boxes and fits your budget, and be ready to act. It doesn't mean skipping your homework or inspections. It just means having your pre-approval ready, being crystal clear on your must-haves, and being prepared to make a smart offer without unnecessary delays. Now, if you hesitate too long on a great property, you could lose it. And we don't want that to happen. So you want to move with a purpose. And here's a sixth strategy. Your secret weapon. Your secret weapon is an expert local real estate agent, a realtor. Now, more than ever, a skilled, experienced local real estate agent isn't just nice to have, but they are essential and key. In a market like this with mixed signals and huge differences from one town to the next, you need someone who's in the thick of it every single day. They're out there and they're in the grind. They know what's happening. They have the pulse of the market. Someone who understands the subtle shifts, knows the inventory, even the coming soon stuff, has a top-notch negotiation skill approach, sharper in all kinds of markets. They know all different neighborhoods and areas. When you have that kind of agent on your team, they can help you make sense of all the data to make smart decisions. And they can also help you avoid overpaying in a market that's supposedly cooling. Help you put together that winning offer. This really isn't the time for a part-time agent or your cousin who just got their license. You need a professional, somebody that knows what they're doing and knows the markets and have a good sense of direction. So with all this complexity, you might be thinking like, why even try to buy a house right now? Why not just wait it out? Why be bothered with it? That's a perfectly fair question, but there are actually some real pluses to buying in today's market. So first, you got more negotiating power. Like we've talked about earlier, sellers are generally more willing to negotiate on price and other terms than they were when the market was at its craziest. This can mean getting a better deal on the home itself or getting the seller to chip in for closing costs and repairs. That shift, even if it's gradual, it works in your favor. Now here, second, the pace is less frantic, giving you more time for thoughtful decisions. So the intense pressure of the pandemic market often pushed buyers into making super fast decisions. They were buying houses like crazy, sight unseen, and sometimes with results they later regretted. A cooling market usually means you have a bit more time to really think about your options. Do your homework thoroughly and make a choice you feel good about without that constant fear of losing out. If you blink, you can actually breathe a little. Now, third, there's the potential for better long-term value. Now, timing the market perfectly is pretty much impossible, but buying when prices have settled down or are growing at a more steady, sustainable rate can be a really solid long-term investment. Owning a home is still one of the best ways to build wealth, and while some folks are predicting pretty modest price growth or even small dips in certain areas for the rest of 2025, the general feeling isn't that a major crash is coming, especially since we don't have enough housing to go around. Waiting for big price drops that might never happen could mean you end up missing out on building equity, and you also run the risk that if rates do fall significantly, competition among buyers will heat right back up, potentially pushing prices higher again. So this market is really about finding that sweet spot. It's not about the total frenzy of 2021, but it's also not a complete buyer's paradise just yet, mostly because of that low inventory. But for a smart, well-prepared buyer, it definitely offers a real chance for you to succeed. Figuring out the 2025 housing market, this whole cooling but still low inventory situation is definitely a unique kind of challenge. The headlines are telling one story, but what you actually are seeing and feeling might be totally different. Triggers to look past the noise and understand what's really going on and get yourself set up with the right game plan. It's not as wild as it used to be, but it still means you need to be on your toes, financially ready, flexible, and guided by someone who knows their stuff. The dream of owning a home is absolutely still alive, even in these type of conditions, if you go with realistic expectations, a solid plan, and the right support. You can find and buy your next home. This takes a bit more patience and a bit more strategy, but the opportunity to win is definitely there. So if you're ready to make your move in this unique market, if you're thinking about buying or selling, and you want a strategy tailored to these exact conditions, I generally love to chat with you. You can find all my contact info in the description on the page channel. And for everyone watching, if this video helped clear things up for you, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more insights to our real estate scene. More importantly, I really would like to hear from you. What are your biggest questions or concerns or frustrations about buying a home right now? Drop it in the comment section below. Do my best to answer it in a future video. And I even will reply to your comments in the comment section. So thanks so much for watching. Catch up with you the next time. This has been Lloyd for Real Estate. Enjoy your day.